and welcome back to our series on Latin America. My name's Rachel Boothroyd. Just as modernisation is slowly eroding agriculture, the youth of Latin America today is fighting for it to stay. In El Salvador, young farmers are demanding land of their own to cultivate, given that this is the only source of income for their families. As they try to meet their ever-growing needs, they are developing alternative methods of agricultural production. Here's their story.
Early in the morning, the Mergar family, who live the countryside in San Bartolomé, Peralupia, in the center of El Salvador, goes out to collect tropical fruit as an alternative because they do not have land to grow basic grains such as corn and beans.
Desde pequeño me ha gustado andar la cuestión de frutas. Siempre cuando empezaba la época de frutas, ya sea de mango, de marañón, de naranja, siempre me ha gustado andar con frutas, ¿verdad? Para comer, ya para mi familia, para la casa.
Christian and his family produce dehydrated food out of the fruits they collect, which they sell in order to have some income. For Guadalupe, Christian's mother, who has 3 more kids, the lack of jobs in the fields forces young men to migrate to the U.S.
Yo creo que quizás cada madre está con eso, con ese temor, porque al no ver a dónde cultivarse, al no hallar alternativas económicas, la misma crisis económica, hace la desesperación de un joven de decir, mire, me marcho.
Day after day, Christian gets back to his daily routine in the countryside, but thinking about the fact that the land should be owned by the people who work it.
Hay gente que lo usa para lo que es maltratarla, en los sentidos de que hacen cosas de que a la naturaleza le afecta. Y una forma de cultivar la tierra, de labrar la tierra, eso es parte de lo que la tierra da, y creo de que debería ser para aquella gente que le dé buen uso a la tierra.
The Salvadorian government has implemented some programs to grant agricultural supplies and to reactivate agricultural activities, but it's not sufficient for the huge demand, and there isn't enough land for such activity. In the country's rural area, poverty has increased due to a lack of economic resources of the rural population to be able to rent the land where they intend to grow the crops. Ernesto Avalos, Telesur, Peralupia, El Salvador.
Unable to complete their studies, a young group of Guatemalans turned to agriculture and music. Today, the group are combining the two as a form of social protest, denouncing social inequalities and also a lack of policies surrounding rural development.
These young country people feed their soul with music. But before these harmonies could occur, they had to work in the fields from dawn to dusk in order to maintain the art and their families.
La problemática económica que tiene nuestro país, pues es un poco difícil dedicarse directamente a la música porque también tenemos familia que mantener, el maíz, frijol, todos los granos básicos tenemos que cultivarlo, producirlo para que también podemos alimentarnos, ¿verdad?
They couldn't continue their education and they decide to work in the fields, a skill they valued because of their cultural background, but they despise the conditions in which it is developed.
Ser campesino pues es muy duro, como sostenernos con la familia, hay que trabajar, levantar de 5 de la mañana a 3, 4 de la tarde, está entrando uno en la casa, trabajar bien matado.
They expressed that the aspiration of every mother and father in their families is that their children can become college graduates in order to break free from the type of slavery that is predominant in the countryside.
Lo que los padres quieren para uno es que el hijo pues supere, que estudie para que no sea campesino, ¿va? Porque el trabajo en la agricultura, en el campo, es muy diferente y es muy poco lo que se gana.
However, there are some who consider that the lack of public policy for rural development in Guatemala, systematic education on its own, it's not going to change the reality.
Bueno, el sistema prepara a los jóvenes para ser técnicos y para ser empleados del mismo sistema. Creo que esa idea la tenemos que ir quitando en la cabeza del campesino, se puede decir.
In this sense, they indicated that there is an urgent necessity of implementing public policies and that education will have to be orientated to some extent to the service of the revolution of the field revolution in a comprehensive manner. Santiago Botón, Telesur, Guatemala.
As more and more young people migrate from the countryside, the Bolivian government is now giving land to rural communities in an attempt to revert the trend. Our correspondent, Freddy Morales, has the details.
Nelson, age 24, is an original authority in his community in the county of Huaqui, on the bank of Titicacas Lake. Young people who live in this rural area in this Bolivian region are an exception.
Nosotros más que todo nos dedicamos a la ganadería y como también hay sustento económico es por el cual también nosotros nos quedamos.
The local school offers primary and high school education. The aspiration of most students is to go to the city in order to become professionals and after that to get back to their town if possible.
Voy a volver acá porque bien dice ahora que el futuro de Bolivia está en las provincias que en la ciudad.
Lo que quiero lograr es más estudiar que estar aquí.
In the case of young countrymen, the decision of migrating is also because of the economy. Dairy production programs has been introduced in this region, which has reduced migration.
Nuestros estudiantes que están migrando, más que todo ahora en un porcentaje de un 10% diría, es los estudiantes que vienen de arriba, de las comunidades de arriba, que son los que tienen también una economía baja, ¿ya? Pero los estudiantes que son de abajo, ¿no? La economía ha subido un poco más con esto de la situación de la ganadería, la lechería.
Also, the government is encouraging programs of land redistribution, which is attracting young migrants.
Mucha gente que ha sacado de la ciudad de La Paz, porque cada uno que ya tiene sus parcelitas. Las parcelas no serán grandes, pero si tenemos aquí en Aymara hacen calpas, una parcelita. De cada parcelita uno ya es dueño, como siempre usted ve que ya en la ciudad Zapata está más saturado.
In 60 years, there has been a new distribution of the population in the country, which is predominantly rural. In 1950, 1/3 lived in the countryside. Nowadays, 1/3 of the population live in urban centers, according to the National Census of 2012. Freddy Morales, Telesur, Bolivia.
That's all for now. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.